Hi, Lynn. I am going to show you how you can take a story or an observation that you have about everyday life and turn it into like a moral of the story lesson kind of thing for your audience. And I'll even talk about how to construct a story so that you can do this each time pretty quickly without you'll have like a system, a process for doing it. So your thoughts are in focus, even if you've never been a writer or even if you don't know how to write. Um, so let's go. I took the story draft that you wrote, which I love because we cannot mold anything if we don't have clay first. So I like to call the rough first smash at it clay. And you've already done that. So let's read through it real quick. I was 13 when I saw Top Gun. This weekend, 36 years later, I watched it again with my kids. Here's how it went down. Aside, it's so effing strange to say 36 years have passed. I don't even feel 36 years old in my mind. Watching a movie again after so many years shows you just how much you've actually changed. I remember being devastated when Goose died, so enthralled by Maverick and Charlie's romance, thinking Iceman was a horrible person, being so impressed that a woman was a top expert in a heavily dominated world. Here's what I felt this time around. No one was really all that sad when Goose died. Iceman was a smarter and more trustworthy pilot. Charlie and Maverick's relationship pissed me off. Charlie's accomplishments only served to give Maverick more status as the one she was infatuated with. Okay, so I'm going to stop because we're going to go through this break by break, and I don't want to waste your time rereading it because you wrote it. Okay, so here are the recommendations that I would make with revising this. The first one, the aside, you don't need that. It has nothing really to do with your main theme or lesson. So you're going to take that out. Watching a movie again after so many years just shows how much you've actually changed. Could that be a theme or moral lesson contender? I highlighted it for to bookmark it basically. I remember being devastated when Goose died. So each one of these could be their own story, lesson, moral post, but don't put them all in one post. You want to stay very focused in each piece of content about what you're talking about. One story, one message. So you're going to pick one and elaborate on that story. Okay, and then these are relevant to the rest of the content. So no one was really all that sad when Goose died. Iceman was a smarter and more trustworthy pilot. They are each, again, they could each be their own post, but in this post where the direction that I took this, they're irrelevant. So I would take those out. Now, Charlie and Maverick's relationship pissed me off. This would be a great curiosity hook to start the content piece. In my opinion, because it incites curiosity. The reader instantly wants to know, well, why did it piss you off? They also have their own ideas of why it might have pissed you off based on their ideas when they saw it. So they're going to want to read more. And the only point of writing copy is to get them to always read the next line, right? And to obviously to join your thing or buy your thing or work with you, so on and so forth. Okay, so Charlie's accomplishments only served to give Maverick more status as the one she was infatuated with. So this one, I started kind of deciphering what is it that you mean, what is it that you could mean with each of these, and I named them moral implication arguments. These are all possible arguments that you could have that could serve as the lesson, the moral of the story. And so I just went through and brainstormed each one of these. So in this case, it could be what you're trying to say could be throwing our accomplishments out the window at the first sign of a good-looking shiny object. That might be something that your audience does and is a problem. Or denying ourselves and foregoing our gifts in an attempt to gain approval from others. So this scene from the movie, reference to the movie, could be the example of the problem that your audience has that you're trying to highlight. Okay. This one, on this last point, I want to take a moment and rant. You can take that out. You don't have to put these qualifiers in here. Charlie was an astrophysicist and teacher at a super elite naval academy, and yet she literally and recklessly chased pilots in her car because His feelings were hurt when she pointed out dangerous tactics weren't the best approach. So here are some more brainstorming that I did for possible arguments that you can make. Smart women do stupid things in the name of emotion. Mixing emotion and business may not be the best approach to stay focused. Sacrificing intelligence, accomplishment for ego keeps you in an emotional state making bad decisions. At 13, I thought it was so cool. She was keeping up with him in the car. She was as kick-ass as he was. Not so much. Strong women don't necessarily have to lead with emotional decisions. Having power doesn't mean chasing that which keeps you in an emotional state of chaos. After Maverick's initial over-the-top chase, she, an accomplished astrophysicist and instructor, was always the one chasing him. What we perceive we deserve, we chase, regardless of how smart we are. So again, those are just translating what I think that you might be saying, or a lesson or a moral that you could base your story around. Their romance felt forced and completely dumb. No amount of Berlin's take my breath away, and there was a lot of it, made me feel like this was some kind of great love. As a result of dumbing ourselves down for the sake of instant gratification, we often force things that are supposed to come naturally. Now, I will tell you, this is the one that I chose to take off with. But let me finish this. What makes me feel even better is that my 16-year-old daughter sees it the same way. She doesn't have to wait 36 years to understand all that's wrong with these kinds of stories. You would elaborate on what you mean. So this could be another moral of the story, but you'd have to really clarify what you're talking about with that. If your concern is about the newer generation or the older, you can see like there are a ton of arguments you can make and a ton of content pieces that you could literally create with all of these moral arguments. And literally, because the movie came out, you could spend an entire week of Top Gun reference pieces all week long posting stuff like this. It could be like a series, and your audience would love it. It gets them excited because they already understand the content. They've watched the first movie. Many of them are or have watched the second movie. They can relate. It gets them in the game, in the story. They're now emotionally involved. That's what you want, right? Okay, so right now it doesn't feel like we're in a good place. This is very vague, so you would flesh that out. Again, another moral argument that you could, like, you have at least 10 different posts in this one story idea, and all you did was start out just having your brain sort of explore the idea of Top Gun and the lessons in that, and out of it come all these content pieces, possibilities. Okay, so in the storytelling process that I teach, layer 1 is know what problems you solve. So I looked at your website and I saw your quote here. I work with midlife entrepreneurs to help them niche and simplify their businesses for sustainable growth. And I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, so I did go to your website. It looks, to the best that I can see, that you offer services that lead business owners to simplify their processes and procedures, freeing them to focus on future growth. So I took that as the problem you solve. It's a service to the problem you solve, but it's still very logical, and we know that people buy an emotion and justify with logic. So how do we join the moral arguments below that I've written out with emotion? How do we marry the two? And what I did was, in the bold, I gave it my best shot of translating the moral implication arguments that we brainstormed above. And then I picked the one, and I told you that I picked the, as a result of dumbing ourselves down. So I picked that one. Now you could do two things here. You could pick one of those like I did and form your entire content piece around elaborating on that one point. Or you could use like all of these arguments and write bullet points linking them to parts in the movie. I personally would break them down into like 10 or 15 different pieces because that's more content over a longer period of time and a bigger opportunity to share, build upon a relationship with your audience over a movie. And therefore your message and how you can help them. Because by the way, you are helping them. What most business entrepreneurs don't understand is that content is helping them. You are giving them something of value. You're giving them a feeling. If done correctly, you're giving them a feeling, an experience for the time that they are reading your content. Now that content needs to be good in doing its job. Otherwise it's boring. They scroll past, they don't do anything, right? Okay. So here's what I came up with as just an example of how you could rewrite or use one piece of content based on what you wrote initially. Charlie and Maverick's relationship pissed me off. For an astrophysicist who sees 20 new hotshots every 8 weeks, she doesn't waste any time trying to get into an inverted nosedive with a famous MIG insulter. Their romance felt forced and completely dumb. No amount of Berlin's Take My Breath Away made me feel like this was some kind of great love. And then you can keep going on this point and even get humorous with it. I teach my clients to be funny because funny is valuable to people. You're offering them value when you can be humorous. You don't have to be a comedian, but just even using quotes from the movie kind of senses a humor reference point that they're familiar with. And then I segued into the moral. As a result of dumbing ourselves down for the sake of instant gratification, we often force things that are supposed to come naturally. Sometimes the most effective systems are the ones that don't require most of your energy. So then you would segue into your call to action and elaborate on the previous sentence here. You'd build that out. And there you go. You would have a story that was emotionally tapped in and interesting to the reader. And additional tips, you could use the movie quotes. Like I said before, tie in their feeling of the movie, get them interested in your content. Make sure that you're talking about the audience more than you're talking about yourself. They care about themselves and their problems. People are selfish. It's our nature in order to survive. We want to know what's in it for us. They're reading your content to find out how you can solve their problem and to get an experience, an emotional experience. Make sure that you have more yous than I's in your content. And then always have a call to action in 50 to 80% of your content. Don't make every piece of content about selling. Sometimes just give for the sake of giving and building rapport and giving value in the way of an emotional experience. But most of the time you do want to offer them to work with you. I hope this helps. I elaborate later on. Like I have a whole template that I built out. I'm a copywriter and writer for businesses. So I've created my own template that actually takes you through the structure of a story where you turn any observation into a piece of content like this that converts. So I saw your story. I thought it was awesome. I wanted to take a stab at it. I hope all of this helps. If you have any questions on what I've given you here, just feel free to reach out. And I'll talk to you soon.